I thought as I started, I wanted to show you some beautiful Mongolian script. So just have a look at that. You're probably unlikely that you've seen Mongolian script before. For those who are unable to read Mongolian script, it's actually a verse from the Bible. It's a special verse to us, and it's James chapter 1 and verse 27. So this was a part of James's letter where he was describing what it would look like to live out the Christian life. He was saying, look, it's not enough just to talk the talk, but it's important to walk the walk. And in that context, he then had this verse, which is up on the screen, which I'll read to you. So what it looks like to be a Christian or to live out the Christian life is this. Pure and unblemished religion, as it is expressed in outward acts, in the sight of our God and Father, is this: to visit and look after the fatherless and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself uncontaminated by the secular world. Thanks, Dale. Last Sunday, Lex actually spoke about the last part of that verse, where we're not to be polluted by worldly patterns, by worldly views. Instead, rather than being conformed to the world, we are to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. Today we're looking at the first part of that verse, the bit about to go and visit and look after the fatherless or orphans and the widows in their distress. God has always had a heart. He's always leaned in to orphans, to widows, to the poor, to those who maybe don't appear to have hope, those who are marginalised and vulnerable. Even back in Leviticus, there were special laws that God put in place to particularly look after orphans and widows. About 14 years ago, Lynice and I went on a missions trip to Thailand. And Lynice had been involved in missions pretty much all her life because her parents had always been the same. But for me, that was my first deep dive into missions. We attended a missions conference in Thailand, and various missionaries from Asia came together to tell their stories, to report on what was happening, to be encouraged and to learn. And we were privileged just to go along and be able to listen to these really inspiring and committed missionaries. I can recall there was a couple who talked about, for them there was no plan B. They were called to be missionaries in Thailand. There was no get out of jail card. There was no plan B. And so many years later, they're still doing amazing work in northern Thailand. There was another couple who talked about the importance of the one, how God sees each child, each woman, each person as precious and important. And that was really impacting to us to know that even though we couldn't change the world, we can change the world for someone. And then we can repeat that process and change the world for their family, and then maybe for their village or community, and generationally give them opportunities that they might not have otherwise had. And then we visited House of Dreams, which was an orphanage, which has had huge impact, obviously, on us over many years now. When we first went there, there were 4 kids there. It was just starting up at that stage, and we learned that the children were there for a variety of really sad reasons, often because of the lack of value attributed to life, and the fact that they were at risk of being trafficked into prostitution, sometimes because of abusive relationships, sometimes just because of extreme poverty. And so we learnt a lot and were very impacted by that experience. And as we left, Lynice was talking through an interpreter to the house mother and said, "We won't go back home and forget you." And the house mother said, "Well, that's really great and precious to us because That's our greatest fear, that people will come and they'll see and they'll be impacted, but they'll go home to their busy lives, their affluent lives, and will forget us. And I remember Lynice gave her a necklace with a little heart on it, just to be a tangible reminder of our care. And each time we visit, Lynice still gives her a little heart. We started sponsoring a child, one of those 4 kids, and part of our role is to partner in the long term. And so we still partner with House of Dreams even today, and we still care for and look after our sponsor child. She texted us during the night last night. She's not great on time changes between Thailand and Australia, but Ning turned 27 the other day, a couple of days ago. And so it's just lovely to be able to maintain that relationship in the long term. So Ning is a graphic designer now. She has her own house. And so it's great to see over time the impact that can be had, that positive impact in the lives of children. So it is about partnership and relationship. So we came home from Thailand so many years ago, really committed to do something, but we weren't sure what that would look like. So we prayed and we learned and we listened. And one day I was walking around Lakes Entrance at lunchtime and just talking to God about that and just asking God, what is it that we are to do? And these words suddenly came to me. They weren't audible words, but it really hit me really strongly. And it was empowering the privileged to empower the poor. Empowering the privileged to empower the poor. So I went home and told Lynice about that, and we pondered over those words. We knew that we wanted to help in the area where women and children were vulnerable to abuse and human trafficking through no fault of their own. They were often marginalised people groups living in very rural areas where there was no schools or employment, where they were very poor and had no reliable income. And it was really our desire to give the women dignity, to give the women hope, to enable them to be healthy and happy and to thrive. And we were aware, even at that stage, that there were some local churches and local missions overseas who were helping vulnerable women through business. So the women were making handicrafts with their Indigenous skills and were selling them in the local community. And these local churches, as using that as outreach, were also telling the women about Jesus and introducing them to Jesus. And to us, that was really important. We didn't want to just start a humanitarian organisation that was meeting the physical needs of these vulnerable people. We wanted to make sure too that their spiritual needs were being met. So in that context, we sent an email to about 2 or 3 missions that we knew, and we said, look, this is what we're thinking, what do you think? We suggested that we were thinking of setting up a retail shop that we would support women by importing products, purchasing products when we ordered, so that they would have the funds to buy the raw materials that they needed, and to import the products to Australia and sell them in a shop. And more than that, we wanted to help them by fitting out workshops where that was needed, providing sewing machines or other equipment where that was needed, and also to visit the women and partner with them so that they knew that we would be journeying with them in the long term. So we started and we told these couple of missionaries that we sent this email to, if that is you, get back to us. But if you know someone who that might be helpful for, please forward this email. So the next couple of months we got emails back from them, but interestingly we got emails from all around the world of different missions or missionaries who were saying that is so much what we need. It would be such an encouragement and help for us if you are able to do that. So we didn't have any background in retail, but we thought, yes, we can do that. And so we set up a fair trade, not-for-profit charity called Empower International. and we established a retail shop in Bairnsdale, and that was back in 2011. So some of you will remember that shop that was there for for 6 years exactly. And after that 6-year period, we decided to relocate and go to Melbourne and set up a shop there. The sole purpose being to try and increase our turnover to help the women more by selling more products. So we then spent 3 years in Melbourne, and with a bit of luck we might see a picture of our shop in St Kilda, where in setting up our shop both in Bairnsdale and then in St Kilda, we did it as well as we could to honour the women, even though we knew that they would never be walking into our shop, and also to honour God, and also to be successful in business by having an area that was inviting, lots of colour, lots of beautiful products that the women made. So that's what we did in our Empower shop, and we had partnered with a number of different producer groups from various countries. And Lynice is going to come and tell you how that looked like in relation to one particular group, how that relationship was established and evolved from then till now.
Thanks. You can put that picture back up if you like. So one of the groups that we have partnered with since the very beginning of Empower is called Artis Altai. And I'm sort of decorated in Artis Altai product a bit this morning, and I've put a bit more up there. I've got my slippers on. Now, Artis Altai is a group of women living in a very isolated, remote part of Mongolia called Gobi Altai. And Altai is actually the name of the city. That's a small city in Gobi Altai. And we were introduced to Artis Altai through Viv Young, who some of you might know from Orbost. And at that time, Viv was a missionary with Interserve and working and living in Altai with these women. Now, I'm not sure what you know about Mongolia, but I'm going to tell you just a little bit about this area where these women are located. It's a high altitude desert area. The winters are very, very long and very, very cold. Now think minus 20 degrees Celsius to minus 30 degrees Celsius. And very long, so month after month after month of that. Rain is quite rare, and it's actually a really special event when it rains. In fact, the manager of Artis Altai sent me a picture last Friday looking out the window of the workshop at rain. She was so excited because it was raining. It never rains. So it's actually very hot and dusty over summer. So when the snow does melt, which it does, it gets quite hot over summer. And for a couple of months there, it is quite hot and very dusty. It's very difficult to grow or cultivate anything in Altai or around that whole area. And there are no roads or highways to get to Altai. In fact, can you see that little dot there? That's actually Geoff. That was where we stopped for a bit of a break on the drive. That's it. That's what it looks like on the road to Altai. It's a region where traditional nomadic herders live in gers and take care of their sheep, their goats, their camels out on the Mongolian steppe. So it's very isolated, very vast and very beautiful. So there's some herders there with their flocks, and there's no fences, you'll notice, no roads, no fences. And they have their goats and their sheep. They also have beautiful Mongolian horses, which are quite special and unique, I believe. They're quite small, very strong horses. Now, the women of Artis Altai use wool, which they source locally, so mostly camel, sheep or goat wool, and they make beautiful felted products to sell. So here we are getting some camel wool. This time of the year actually, it's spring over there, and all of the animals need to shed their winter coats. And the goats get combed, so their winter coat gets combed out. And the camels, their winter coat just gets cut off. So if the women want to buy, say, 2 kilograms of wool, they just cut off 2 kilograms of wool, pop it into a bag, weigh it, and off you go. And it's fantastic. So that's how they get their wool. It's all locally sourced. Now, we've been importing their products and selling them here in Australia since the very beginning of Empower. And we've already said that for us, the most important thing, the whole point of everything is the women. Each one, each family. Over time, we have witnessed both joy and pain, as you do when you journey with people through life. Now, one period of time that's really significant to us, which I'm just going to touch on briefly, happened quite a few years ago now. One day when the shop was going and we were already selling their products, we got a panicky email from the women saying that there were bugs in their wool storage. And it was actually very, very serious. This bug infestation meant that the whole workshop had to be emptied, decontaminated, and actually couldn't be used for a period of time. Every product, every prototype, every last piece of felt or wool had to be destroyed. And they were also in danger of losing their export market, which is something that they relied on for their income. We also had to get one shipment destroyed and closely inspect all of our stock. Anyway, we all did at that time what needed to be done. And the best thing was, so did the women. So we prayed, and the women prayed. And that had never happened before. And out of that complete devastation and disaster, each one of those women came to know Jesus and was baptised, and they started a church in their workshop. It was just absolutely... And it's important to us, I think Geoff touched on before, that it's important and a privilege to partner with the women over a long period of time. And we all grow and learn and change together. And we've seen gold come to the surface in each of the women. One of the women of Artis Altai is now the workshop manager. One has taken on the office and computer work. Another one is actually a really brilliant product developer. She's so creative. And together they have embraced and they're training new women and encouraging new women in their journey as well. There's one new woman who has just begun there in the last couple of years who is about our age, and she has a disability, but because of that and lots of other cultural issues, she has never had a job or a family, and it's a huge thing for her to be part of the workshop. Can you just even imagine how life-changing that is for her? It's just mind-blowing, it really is. So these women are fully amazing. What God is doing through their lives in Altai is fully amazing. Now, one of the significant projects we've embarked on with the women of Artis Altai has been to get a purpose-built workshop completed, which is what you're looking at now. This was completed a few years ago and has been wonderful. Last year, during a COVID lockdown, we helped fund some updates and renovations to make it even better. It is a safe, cosy, warm, welcoming workshop. It has things like running water, sewerage connection, heating, an office, a kitchen, and also a little shop for the locals and tourists to visit. It has windows, which you can see there, which are triple glazed so that everyone can see in. And the workshop also still doubles as a church, and the church is growing. And I also received some photographs via Messenger just on Easter Sunday of a couple of teenage boys that were being baptised into their church. So the women use their skills, their resource, and the workshop also in a partnership with World Vision Mongolia. So alongside World Vision, they run food relief, health sessions, and also do felting play days for children. So over time, this little business, this little workshop has become a very real light in Altai. And I think one of the most significant things as well, alongside all those things that's happening, is that the women are now a legal cooperative. So Artis Altai is completely owned and run by the women themselves. It's absolutely fantastic. But as you know, COVID happened and things changed. The landscape actually changed for us all. Our lease was ending in between the first 2 lockdowns in Melbourne, and we decided to close the shop permanently. But between those lockdowns, almost every product and every single shop fitting was sold, which actually meant that although we couldn't see what was happening in the future, God had prepared us for that and prepared our women for that. And we had this pool of funds available, which we've been able to use since then to help all of our partner groups transition through into a new season. Some of our partners have retrained and embarked on a different path, looking at potential for business within their own communities. One of our partners, or a couple of our partner groups, we've sent aid relief to, so just ongoing donations, just so that they can have income still, even though they're not able to work. These particular ones, some of them have taken that through their local churches and bought food and medical supplies and then taken it out to some elderly folk and pregnant women and some widows within their own communities, along with their church pastors, and done visitation and visited people that way. But it's quite different now, and we're all actively still thinking outside the square as we move into the future. As far as all of the actual producer groups go, each group is unique, and the way forward is going to look a little bit different for each of them. With Artis Altai in particular, because we're talking about Artis Altai today, we have recently begun trying a new partnership type arrangement, and we've teamed up with a Mongolian fair trade charity that's very much like Empower, but located in Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital city of Mongolia. And they have a shop in Ulaanbaatar called Mary and Martha. And right now, we've been paying Artis Altai to actually provide products which they send to Mary and Martha to sell, rather than shipping them all the way to Australia. So this has actually been really good for the time being. It's kept Artis Altai in work, so the women have still got income and continue to develop their presence within Altai, but it's also helped Mary and Martha recover from the COVID years and extend their ministry within Mongolia. And for now, that process is working really well for that group. It's different for each of them, but we're talking about that group at the moment. And we also have been able to get a couple of shipments through this year from Mongolia. So if anyone's interested, you can see us at some stage or have a look online, because we do have some products from Artis Altai in Australia since COVID. You can see us anytime about that, or have a look at the website, which Geoff's going to talk a little bit about.
Thanks, Del. So early on, we were aware there was a local church in Thailand who had an outreach for women in that area who had HIV/AIDS. And these women were making handmade cards out of handmade paper called sar paper, which is from the bark of the mulberry tree. And for those who are aware of our Empower shop, we have sold thousands upon thousands of cards over the journey. But very early on, when we first met those women, to our surprise, we became aware that they were actually sending a little bit of money to support a children's safe house close by, which was run by a pastor and his wife, and there were 4 children there at that time. And we were just like staggered that those who were, in very difficult financial circumstances themselves, even still looked outwards to see how they could help others. And we've been surprised numerous times with similar stories. So we went to visit Clear Skies House, which was run by Pastor John, who is what's called the Lahu tribe. There's about 7 tribal groups in Thailand, and Lahu is one of those. And Pastor John is a leader in the Lahu community, and he and his wife have this ministry to look after vulnerable Lahu children. So when we visited there, we came across their bamboo little accommodation that they had to move out of for obvious reasons. The bamboo accommodation is always of a fairly short-term duration. Anyway, we were really impacted by Pastor John and Nassi and their desire, their call to care for children, to nurture them, to keep them safe, and to teach them about Jesus. When we were there, they had these little dolls for sale that the children had made. And those of you who know our Empower shop know that we have sold thousands of these little dolls over the time as well. And so we obviously bought all the dolls they had on that day, and we went home and we were committed to helping Clear Skies House thereafter. And this Children's Safe House has been our single biggest ongoing project ever since 2011. So we have subsequently funded all the infrastructure for Clear Skies House. There's 30 children there now. So we've funded bedrooms, which you'll see. We've also brought some Australians over on a working trip. You might see a couple of champions there at the front who you might recognise. Build a wall, we said, and so they did. It was very much like the whole Nehemiah story. There was a whole group of us all around, and it was just watching it all going up really quickly. So it was a great experience. One which we carefully arranged not to take over from the Thai builders, but we went there and we said, here's 11 of us, we're here to help. What can we do to help you? And so we helped in the construction of the wall and in bedrooms. And we also have funded the construction of a kitchen and dining area. We've also put in a water tower and well, which is 75 metres down into the ground to provide a water supply for Clear Skies House. And we've funded a new office complex with a sick bay and kitchen and meeting room and accommodation for the house parents. And we also, so we fund each year for the children, so it's $10,000 each quarter. So it's $40,000 a year that we provide for the care for the children. In addition to that, Pastor John, who is in that picture there, is committed to, he's established something called a Happy Families Project. So the idea is to provide assistance to the families of the children who are there so that children can return home. So this is, in many instances, transitional care. So whilst issues are addressed at home, so additional funds are provided for his Happy Families project. So there's a variety of reasons why the children are there. This little girl on the right-hand side, you can just see her face and a little pink top. When she arrived at Clear Skies House, she had been looked after by her grandmother. I don't know what the story is with her parents, but her grandmother she'd come over from Myanmar into Thailand. Her grandmother didn't want to look after her granddaughter anymore, and so she really had no one. And so the school across the road from Clear Skies House asked if there was any way that they could provide care for her. At that time, I don't know what her name was, but it wasn't her real name that she knew. It was a nickname, and it was a derogatory nickname that someone had given her. It was a really dark name, and she didn't know the date that she was born or anything like that. So they changed her name and they called her the Thai word for blessing. And so she was very quiet. She was very new to Clear Skies House about 8 years ago in that picture. But we're going to roll a video in a second, and this is a video. They have a church service every Sunday, and in this church service, the girl on the right who is leading the worship is blessing. And so just have a look at this. Blessing has just, we were there about 3 weeks ago, and Blessing has just left Clear Skies House to go into accommodation where she's now going to be studying nursing. So that just shows sort of the transition over a lengthy period of time. And I've asked Pastor John, will you keep an eye on Blessing and just make sure that she's okay and safe and, into the longer term? And he said, look, I follow up and keep in contact with every child who's been through Clear Skies House. And you might not have pictured, but the woman who was next to her singing and the guy who was playing the guitar, they are adults now, sort of probably 30 or so, and they both used to live at Clear Skies House. They left, went to Bible college, have since been married, and so they come back to Clear Skies House on Sundays to help with the worship and with the guitar playing, so which is a great thing. Other children are there for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because they're orphans in the true sense of not having a mother or father. Sometimes they are there because dad's in jail, mum has HIV, there's no one to look after the kids, there's no school where they are, they're very poor, and the children are vulnerable to being abused or being trafficked or just not being cared for. A very common scenario is that there is a new stepfather on the scene and he has, significant issues with drugs or domestic violence or sexual abuse, sadly. And so they are the sort of reasons why the children are in care at Clear Skies House. As I say, training and family training takes place with a view for some kids to be able to return home when it's safe for that to happen. So, and that is, a really encouraging thing when that is able to take place. So when we visited a couple of weeks ago, we went, our main purpose of going was to update some paperwork, so child protection policies for the children, because it's important that there are safeguards in place to ensure that everything is done to keep the children safe. But whilst we were there, the first day we came, there were 2 additional children from Myanmar, and the reason for that is that you'll probably be aware of the atrocities being undertaken by the Myanmar government in relation to minority groups in Myanmar, and so a lot of women and children are fleeing Myanmar across the border into Thailand. And so by the second day we went there, there were 6 additional children there from Myanmar, some who had seen horrible things. They were all very poor, had hardly any clothing, and this is sort of, I guess, how Empower often works. Before we went to Thailand, 2 different couples gave us amounts of money totalling $700, and they said, when you're in Thailand, you'll come across a need, and when you do, these funds are for that purpose. So here we were, there were 6 young children from Myanmar who needed school books, clothes, backpacks, educational facilities. They had to learn the Thai alphabet and to be able to spell their name in Thai before they were allowed to go to school. And so we were able to provide this $700 to Clear Skies House so that they could quickly organise a teacher to come and teach the kids the alphabet. So here they are learning the alphabet and how to spell their name, etc. And then there's photos of the kids taken shopping to get clothing, school books, school shoes and things like that. And then the next photo will show they had this sort of fun time, a bit like Christmas really, opening up all of their shopping and getting all their bits and pieces out. So that's how God works. When we went to Thailand, we had no idea how this $700 would be used, and it was just the right amount at the right time to be able to solve that issue. Whilst we were there, it is apparent that after such a long time that our infrastructure has been there, it needs some renovations, some improvements and upgrades. And so we went around starting from the front to the back with the house parents and gently worked out what needed doing. And we came up between us with quite a long list. And so we were able to, whilst we were there, transfer $28,000 to their account and said, go, just do what needs to be done. And what would have taken probably more than a year in Australia has already happened in the last 3 weeks. So builders come, painters come, so it's all happening. So there was painting and structural repairs undertaken. In relation to their kitchen and dining area, they decided rather than having open walls, which they'd initially had to let sort of air through, they wanted to build that in with windows so that it could be used in the evenings for kids to do homework, keep the mozzies out and to keep it cool. So that's all happened already. There's new fans everywhere. There's a replacement of the water filter for the tank. So lots of things going on at Clear Skies House. And so we're really pleased that is happening so that, the best possible care is provided for the children. And so that's just great to see all of that happening. And so we get, regular feedback. So these are photos that were sent through just in the last day or two. It's quite exciting seeing our phones buzzing at various times of the day and night from various countries. I just got yesterday from House of Dreams. That's the same house mother who I spoke about earlier, was just sending some photos of a kindergarten that they have just established. So it's quite exciting and a bit crazy sometimes, all the various things that are happening. A part of our role at Empower is empowering the privileged. And that has happened over the years. Empower is not just Lynice and I. There are quite a few people who volunteer, who have supported. There are some people who have been very faithful and very generous for Empower since we started, and without their support, we wouldn't have been able to do what we have done. And so you might be sitting there thinking, well, generally it's really hard to know how do you help in these circumstances. The need is great. But, if you provide funds to big organisations, so much money is used up in advertising and wages for CEOs, and, they're driving SUVs in the country where they're working. But that's not how we work. So we are all volunteers, and we don't do any paid advertising. So subject to one thing I'll say in one sec, 100% of donations to Empower go directly and totally to projects. And the only exception to that, with Clear Skies House, if people want a tax deduction, then we channel those funds through an organisation called Global Development Group, which has responsibility to the Australian government to report on Clear Skies House. So they take 7.5% for administration. But if any other funds to Clear Skies House that don't require tax deductibility, 100% goes there to that project. So we have various projects underway that we don't have time today to tell you about, but by telling you about Artis Altai and Clear Skies House, I hope that you've got a bit of an idea of what we are about. So you can purchase products. We have an online shop. You can talk to Lynice. We have other products at home, and we'll be getting some more along the way that you can purchase if you want. You are welcome to donate if you want to. We would, be really pleased if you would pray for Empower, pray for the missions that we support, and find out more, ask us questions and talk to us. There's lots of ways that you can get involved. You can go, you can give, you can, one good thing to do today, I've got a heap of these dolls here. So each family, please feel free, and I would encourage you to take a doll after the service, take it home and sit it up on a windowsill in the kitchen or somewhere. It will just remind you of the children at Clear Skies House. We also have some business cards which have our website on. So the website will come up on the screen in a tick, and you can find out more about Empower at that website. And it also has provision for donations, either directly to Empower or if you want the tax deduction, there's guidance on that website as to how to do that. So that's James 1:27, to go, to care, and the wording of that verse was about ongoing care, ongoing support, to continue in the long term. And so we're going to keep doing that with all that we have for as long as we are able, and we welcome you to journey in that and to do what you can to help. A great way to start is to make sure that all of that Coolamutong cakes, etc., are sold. And, don't be so fussy about asking for change. When you hand over a $20 note and you buy something for $10, don't worry, that's fine. Because what we want to have is a really generous heart, a generous spirit as we carry out the picture that James, that God has, that Jesus showed and that we are following, to go and care for the poor, for the orphans, for the widows, for God's glory. Thanks, Lex.
Stay there. Just stay there for a sec. When Geoff and Lynice were in Thailand a few weeks ago, we as a board met and we talked about you guys while you weren't there. And what we decided was we as a church, Red Gum, want to get behind you guys. We want to champion what you're doing. We don't want to remake stuff. And yes, we've got needs in our community. Yes, we're going to start a youth outreach coming soon. Yes, we have needs in our own building. We have a kitchen that's not done. There's needs wherever you look. But I think that there's a really important thing to do as a church to get behind what God's put on you and Lynice's hearts and champion you, get behind you guys, what you're doing. And so you are officially our missions front line, right? And so I want you to know when you give to this mission organisation, it's kingdom. Don't worry about keeping stuff back for Red Gum. Give it away to these guys. Like God's a God of plenty. We don't have to be worried about if the money goes there, we won't have enough for ourselves. Let's just give. If God puts on your heart to give to Empower, just go for it. This is we're proud of what you guys are doing. We really are. And Lynice, I loved when you shared this morning, and you come alive when you talk about stuff that you guys are doing over there. It's fantastic. It really is. So. Yeah, we're just proud of you. And I even said to Geoff, if you want to use this building as a pop-up shop during the summertime, we, sell flog stuff out of here, whatever, You might have some ideas of ways you can help. So just get behind these guys, what they're doing. Yeah.